which is about 30-40 minutes up the road. This would set up the path that would ultimately get him to Formula 1, and the rest, as they say, is history. Welcome everyone to the captainjj lore, the series where I'll be going through my own history, whether it would be good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. The first episode is exploring how my motor racing interests were formed. It all started one afternoon in 1996 when I'd got home from a visit from somewhere I don't remember and turned the TV on. You know, those big CRT things which were heavy to carry around, but it made you lose quite a bit of weight when you did it. Next thing I know, I see fast cars going around a racetrack and was curious about it. No idea what was happening, what the championship was, or the positions. I was interested immediately. The rest of the races that year were recorded as I wasn't legally allowed to be at home alone without an adult, and then I watched them back, which increased my interest more. This included that now legendary quote from the late Murray Walker when Damon won the title at Suzuka. Now I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat. Didn't know the meaning behind this until adulthood when I started to look further into these things, and it became poignant 25 years later. 1997 was my first full season, and Australia saw McLaren winning for the first time in 3 years. Well, that Grand Prix in 1993 was the last time they won, with the late Ayrton Senna. A first corner collision, brake failure, and Alesi infamously running out of fuel and saying, "You've got a major problem, sunshine, when you get back to the pits." Yeah, nice way to rub it in, Murray, but then again, he was in a lot of trouble for it. A season full of up and downs. France's first win in F1 at Imola, Schumacher's inspired decision to change the setup before the race at Monaco, Panis's leg breakage in Canada, Silverstone where nobody wanted to win, Hakkinen blew his engine, Williams messed up a pit stop with Villeneuve, Schumacher's wheel bearing decided to give up the ghost, and Irvine's half shaft doing the same thing. With Hill, Damon, finally scoring a point for the Arrows team, which had been subjected to poor reliability or crashes. Video recording was a strange subject. The German Grand Prix had a movie instead of the race because the wrong channel was selected on the VCR, well, video cassette recorder, whichever way you want to put it. So, instead of having the race on it, I ended up with some classic movie on it. I don't know the name of it. This was a shame as it was Gerhard Berger's and Benetton's final victory. Interestingly enough, Berger bookended Benetton's winning streak. He won their first race together, which was also, yeah, you get the idea by now, in Mexico in 1986, and also won the finale for the two in Germany in 97. It was also during this time that karting was on ITV, known as Champions of the Future. This was established in 1996 by then McLaren team boss Ron Dennis, head of Mercedes Motorsport Norbert Howe, and Martin Hines of Zipkart, with sponsorship from Highline Springs, Mobile One, and Tag Heuer. McLaren would join in on the sponsorship game in 1997, along with Cygnus, who were responsible for developing the PlayStation F1 games at the time. They had just released the F1 game in 1996, which was based on the 1995 season, and were currently developing the 97 edition, which wouldn't be released until September or October of that same year. Commentary was provided by former motorcycle racer and World Superbike commentator at the time Keith Hewen, and was presented by David Jensen, who himself was a big motorsport fan. This was also the first time I saw Lewis Hamilton in action, who was racing in Formula Yamaha after winning the Cadet Series the previous year. He'd also won the Cadet Championship in Super 1 at that same time and Kart Masters, so he'd won everything that needed to be won in the Cadet Series that year. As her the next step was Formula Yamaha. He did also dabble in Junior TKM for a little bit, which is also a little known fact. There is a picture somewhere of him racing at Kimbolton, but that's about it. He only dabbled in it, he didn't do a full season. I missed the opening round of Buckwell because I didn't even know it was on. So the first time I saw him in action was in Warden Law near Sunderland. He had an incident in the heat which meant he started 15th instead of towards the front in the final, and he went from that to second place by the end of the race, only finishing behind the reigning champion that year, which was Andrew Delahunty. This was also the first time I saw Susie Stoddard, nee Wolf. She was racing in the same class as Lewis and was 3 years older than him. She got spun around that day while she was in a competitive position. And the same thing happened again in Lutz Quarter, which was a couple of rounds later. She had good results in Larker and Rye House at the end of the year. And then beyond that, I don't even know what happened to her. All I know is that she's Toto Wolff's wife. I keep saying the wrong name. With a son. And is helping women to get into motorsport, whichever areas, whether it be driver, engineering, any sort of thing. To help women get into motorsport is the general idea. It's a fun fact also, during 2016, where it was Dare to Be Different, which was the non-profit initiative to help women get into motorsport, I actually met her and got a picture of it, shook hands and all that. Yeah, I knew she had a good head on her shoulders, and yeah, it's just shown. It's pretty good. Anyway, I'm blabbering on a little bit. Let's just get back to the matters in hand. It was that performance at Warden Law and the subsequent domination in the Wet at Buckmore Park, which was their second visit and the third round of the championship, which inspired me in a way to take up karting myself. Initially it was a ride and drive practice and I was slow and soft, but more on that later. Lewis won the former Yamaha title that year with 3 final wins at the aforementioned Buckmore Park, Nuts Corner in Northern Ireland, and PF International in Lincolnshire. At the time, it was the signature kart circuit developed by Paul Fletcher. It still is. I believe it's the only track that's international level, but I could be wrong about that. While he was second at the first visit of Buckmore, Warden Law, as I've already mentioned, and Larkhall. He wrapped up the title in the heats at Rye House, the final round, which is in north of London. And at the time, it was his local track because Lewis was based in Stevenage, which is about 30-40 minutes up the road. This would set up the path that would ultimately get him to Formula 1, and the rest, as they say, is history. Other known facts are that the Cadet Championship went to Paul de Rista, while Jicker had future BTCC champion Colin Turkington, DTM star Jamie Green, Stephen Hodges, who would win the title that year, and would also race in the BTCC for a season. Oliver Jarvis was also there, where he became a sports car driver, while cadets had Oliver Oakes, who now works in motorsport management. The 1996 Jicker class was also won by future DTM champion Gary Paffett. I got my race license in the year 2000 and started racing myself in 2001 in Arriva Drive rental cars. It was a new experience and I wasn't quick to start with, like anything new, but it got better as the season progressed. It was also during that period where I was seeing Mika Häkkinen take his 2 world titles in 98 and 99 in hard fought seasons against Ferrari and the Michael. Well, sorry Aiden, I had to steal that. Michael himself took Ferrari's first world title since 1979 in the year 2000, which was also his 3rd overall. He had won the 94 and 95 titles with Benetton. I then saw the dominance era, which I didn't fully appreciate until much later. You see, as a kid, you don't fully understand what's going on behind the scenes, and when I look back at it later as an adult, and seeing what's happening with Ferrari right now, you get to appreciate it a lot more. Michael was able to bring a team in and work the team around, and so they worked together, so they managed to win 5 world titles. Not many people can say that. Well, Lewis could, but then Michael laid all the groundwork for him, and Lewis was able to just evolve it. What brought me into the racing was seeing others make a name for themselves, and the underdog stories where the smaller teams had their day. Jordan and Stewart in 1999 come to mind. For Jordan, it was the French Grand Prix at Manicourt, Italian Grand Prix at Monza, while for Stewart, it was the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Nowadays, it's much more difficult to find it. It's still possible, but the opportunities are few and far between. In karting, I did Arrive and Drive Rentals Championships at Silverstone and Wilton Mill. I did better at the latter. Towards the end of the year, I had my first go in a TKM car, which was a little bit terrifying for me, as it was a big step up. The Arriva drives are like small Honda Cadet style engines and I was moving into 100cc, yeah, you could definitely see how much of a leap and bounce that was. It was so much of a leap that when I got back into the Revive and Drive car, I forgot how to drive it. And I had one of the worst rounds I ever had in my life. Yeah, you get the idea where that comes from, don't you? I did the last 2 events at Wiltonville at their club championship level, which I believe was October and November. I won a novice trophy there as well, which is okay. And yeah, that was it for that one. My first proper season as a novice was tough. That was 2002. I did many events, but I didn't grasp the basics. I had a confidence zapping endorsement in a meeting where I think I hit somebody off the track by accident and then got excluded from the race for it. The endorsement scheme, you had 3 endorsements and then your license gets suspended. It was the predecessor of the point system that we now have, where it's 12 points and then you get your license suspended. Kevin, I'm looking at you from last year for getting 12 points and getting yourself a ban. A big crash when I got too close to the tyre wall at Kim Bolton and my confidence just went... Yeah. And it took a lot of time for it to be rebuilt. I'm not that sort of driver who could just shake it off and then come back on. But not when I was 12, 13 years old. It needed something to help me. Attitudes from people running me didn't exactly help me rebuild either. Yeah, when you get a little bit berated, a little bit too harsh at teaching, it can make somebody go in on themselves. And that is what happened with me. Despite all this, it was decided for me to go national, which in hindsight was a mistake. National, I'm talking about in Junior TKM, which was the Super 1 National Championships in 2003. My low confidence, my lack of speed, I even sprained my wrist in the first day of practice for Rower, I think it was. I went too wide, I went straight into a barrier. Yeah, I sprained my wrist for it. Yeah, horrible. Pressures and mistakes built up into a toxic cocktail, and after the second round where a miscommunication and berating afterwards, I meant, yeah, fine, I've had enough. This is not for me. Oh, this is not for me. I'm too far deep in this. I need to get out. So, called it quits and switched teams and went back to club level for the rest of the year. Yeah. Yeah, let's just say my tail was between my legs, I was out of my element, and I didn't have enough experience for me to make it worthwhile. The change did help somewhat, but it didn't help me on the confidence side. I felt like a broken driver, and the scars from that period would take time to heal. As I said, the switch did help me a little bit, but the struggles were in my head, and at this point I didn't know how to process it, which is not good. 2004 was a quiet year, but after what happened in 2003, it needed to have been. Didn't get any silverware, but at the same time I didn't do anything majorly wrong either. It was just one of those nothing special seasons, mediocre, not much happened. So much so I don't even remember half of it. All I know is that I was on a Venom kart, and that's it. Yeah, I don't really know how much more I can explain on that one if I can't really remember it. 2005 was my best season and was starting to find myself. It was, however, short-lived. To get a bit more silverware, I got a top 5 in my club championship, which meant I got a big trophy, which is somewhere in my bedroom. And then the decision was taken in 2006 to move up to seniors, even though, when I look back at it, I still had an opportunity to remain in juniors, but I decided upon myself to go up to seniors. Yeah, not a good idea. As it turned out, the scars of 2003 came out in its ugly way. I was out of my element again, and I was struggling to hold my own. I was towards either the mid or the back of the pack, and as it turned out, in the middle of the year, my chassis broke. Mechanical issues like thrown chains, engine failures, electricals, and the bumpers coming loose did little to help me and trying to rebuild. Trying to build my confidence up, trying to get myself a footing in the class. There was also a lack of seriousness on my side as a result of all this. So yeah, I had my gaming device, did that whenever I could, and yeah, as a result, I think my ability as a driver did suffer. Once the equipment was working and I was able to get back on the pace again, it was fine. But that was few and far between. The thing is, with the driver and the team relationship, it's a two-way thing. If a team is able to provide the equipment for the driver to be able to perform, they can perform. And if they don't yet and not able to provide the equipment, and the driver is having to overdrive at this point to make up for the equipment deficiencies, then it's going to lead to a breakage in relationships. If it's not the driver, it's the kart. If the kart is suffering, then the driver performance suffers as well. Although we can get sometimes where the driver is just terrible and isn't unable to make the equipment work, which didn't happen with me that season. It was either the equipment failing me, chassis failing me, or I was getting bullied. I was also struggling with my GCSEs and pressures of that at that time, which didn't help at all. Personal troubles, not being able to process life and being a directional compass also came into it. Looking back at it, I believe I was trying to conform to a system that I didn't fit in. This was in state education. I don't really talk about that period too much because it's terrible, brings up bad memories, and it's not particularly a fun period in general, to be honest. And the final event, which wasn't supposed to be in October, that was the final straw. It was a heat where I needed to be on dry tyres, and I said I had to be on dry tyres, but I was on wet tyres and I just went backwards. And then in the final, when it was wet, the electrics failed on me again. It was the same problem which I had on Saturday, and it came up again. I was that annoyed. I was so annoyed that I took my helmet off and let myself get soaked from head to toe in a stormy afternoon in October. If it wasn't me holding myself back, it was a car that was holding me back. It's a two-way thing, like I said earlier. I had to change the strategy after the August events where it was at its worst, and I was back on the pace straight away. Enough said. On the F1 side, Fernando Alonso was making a name for himself. He took 2 world titles in 05 and 06, and the Michael retired for the first time at the end of the latter season. There was some good clean racing throughout, particularly at Bahrain and Imola, where the Michael was able to beat Fernando. No, actually, Fernando beat Michael at Bahrain, and Michael beat Fernando at Imola. There were some dodgy moments. Hungary in particular, Michael. Well, I can't really say too much because what's happened to him afterwards. He's not able to see it. Okay. The wheel nut failing on Alonso's side at that very same event. The engine blows at Monza for Fernando, and the Michael having won at Suzuka was some of the more heartbreaking highlights, depending on which side of the coin you're on and which race you are watching, on what otherwise was a good clean season. The Brazil drive from Michael showed what we'll be missing, or so we thought. The karting has been set up for something that would change me in the future, because at that point, at the end of the 2006 season, my mum, who was financing me, had made the decision to switch teams. She had been looking around and the decision was taken to change. But she also said I had to change. Well, if I'm going to a different team who can treat me in the way that I would like to be treated, then I can do something with it. But in that environment where I was in, yeah, I just wasn't there. I wanted to do better than what the equipment was capable of and what the team was capable of. So that's some of the frustration, but not all of it. In F1, it was about to embark on a new era, with Michael's retiring, and then the aforementioned Lewis Hamilton would be making his way into McLaren for 2007. That's in another that's in another storyline. The other thing is, karting and F1 weren't the only things going for me during the early stages of my life. Gaming had become part of it as well. And that was actually started a lot earlier than my karting and F1 interests were. So the groundwork has been laid for my interest in Formula 1 and karting, along with a few names which were mentioned which will be relevant later on in the timeline. If you have enjoyed this video and would like to know more about the Captain JJ lore, please do consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you get notified whenever my videos go on online. Or anything like posts, streams, that sort of thing. I am a streamer, by the way, so don't forget about that. If you'd like to see more action on this, you can hit the button here, or you can hit one here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button over there. And until next time, yeah, keep it in the Captain JJ lore.